So something's happened. I feel he's
gone wonky.
He's gone a bit wonky, but haven't we all?
Yes. So I'm here in this picturesque boardroom with Nigella Lawson to talk about her new book, At My Table. Nigella, At My Table is a little bit different, isn't it, than your previous books?
Well, it's a bit different, but also it shares, in a way, the same character and the same impetus. But I have done a book without any boundaries, if you like. There aren't chapters. I was looking through, I was having to check something in one of my old books not long ago, and I was checking it on e-format. And so, of course, when you do that, you have a list of all the recipes at the front, and you can find what you need. And I thought, actually, I want to borrow something from, if you like, the digital world, because it made things very simple. I mean, sometimes when I do a book, the idea of certain chapters happen organically, but if they don't, and they didn't this time, I thought the difficulty is then, if I have 6 chapters, I have an idea of what might fit in, and then I have to think, oh, does that fit in there, or should it be in somewhere else?
Yeah,
and then I'm struggling to get sort of equal, and I wanted it to flow, and I suppose I can only write the book I want to write, and that's what happened. I just wanted to do the food I like eating and just let it flow. I did put, sweet things at the end, but otherwise, and then broadly speaking, there is a flow, but there's such overlaps that in fact there could have been any other different way of doing it, but I just did the way that felt right, and I enjoyed that.
So your books always have a bit of a narrative, a kind of little sense of story that runs through it, but this book really felt like it had quite a lot of that quite personal vibe.
Yes, but it's interesting because there aren't any chapters, there aren't the long sort of discussions and warbling on at each time, so in many ways there isn't any attempt at a narrative arc, and yet what happened, as you say, is there's much more narrative because the food tells the story, because a lot of these recipes are recipes that stem from something I grew up with, whether it's a recipe of my grandmother's or something that my mother made, but actually I might cook it very differently now, and do, because I suppose there are different constraints on my time and I've got different ingredients available to me. So I've really told the story of how I cook and what I cook and why I cook, but not as an essay, but in introductions to each recipe and sometimes within the steps. Once I start, I don't stop. So it is interesting. So the narrative very much comes out of the food, and that to me is important, actually.
Cool. In the spirit of that, we asked Nigella to bring some objects along that would tell us a bit of the story of her life in objects. So what's the first object you brought?
I don't know. Show and tell. I did a mixture. What I did is I brought along some objects that mean something to me and come from my past and from kitchens of the past, and also another one that means something in my kitchen now particularly, and a bit of gadgetry as well that I like, and a bit of food for you. So where shall I start? I will start quite a long way back. This wooden spoon, kept actually in quite good nick, comes from my mother's kitchen.
Wow.
How
have you kept it in that good nick?
Well, because I didn't, this is one of the few spoons I haven't burnt. There's a bit of a burn here.
A little bit, not too much.
But not too much. I suppose I'm very careful with this one because it means such a lot to me. My mother died a long, long time ago, and she was 48. And when we went through some of her things, I mean, I really wanted to take a few of those everyday things, and I'm afraid I've lost a few along the way, but I've got this still. I've got a few things, but this wooden spoon, and I do keep it. It is in play, but I mean, this was the best of her wooden spoons. I have got one that now is really almost a charcoal crisp, but I thought I'd bring it.
Less photogenic.
Well, it's not just that. It's just that I just thought this one, you can see it has, what you could say, the pattern of age. In other words, grease, and you can see that. And if you feel it, it does feel very different from a wooden spoon you'd be using now.
Yes.
But that's like, and this one is from my. I don't know. I'm doing Deaths and Kitchen Utensils Inc.
Yes.
This is from my sister Thomasina's kitchen, and she died shortly after my mother did, but she was 31. and she had a set of these, and I think she obviously got them secondhand. She got them because you can see this is not really useful.
Yes,
But I love this, and I've got a few
used,
of these things hanging up, and one of these appeared in my first book, How to Eat, and so I like that. I like this memory. Not everything in the kitchen should be, you know, tasteful. I like this is really old-fashioned. It just reminds me of the past and of her.
Did you intentionally, when you were taking things as mementos, did you intentionally take kitchen implements, or was it just where your instinct
My
took
instinct. My instinct.
And was Thomasina a cook as well?
Yes,
because
she
your mother
was.
was a great cook, wasn't
yes, she was, and we cooked an awful lot. In fact, we did all. What I often think that I wouldn't have started writing about food really in a way without them, because they had died, and my conversation all the time would be, what are you cooking for supper? And I'd say what I was cooking for supper, and we'd talk about it. So it was, in a way, writing about food was a way of continuing that conversation. Yes, my sister Thomasina was well, both my mother and my sister Thomasina were very good cooks, but, you know, not with recipes, and very... my sister always did a thing. She always liked like a lot of potato on the table. So, you know, there would be roast and mash at the same meal.
Oh, my kind of woman.
Yeah, that was very good. So I think that, and she lived in Wales, and sometimes if she came to stay with me, there was a particular thing she really liked, and we used to have, again, it's not very gourmet, but really delicious, which was pitta. So we do a shop together. You go and get some pitta, some tarama salata, bacon, spring onions, and I'm probably sacrilegious, but her idea of absolute heaven was, you know, the tarama salata and a pitta with some crisp bacon on top, and then some spring onions over that. And so that really reminds me of her as well. So I suppose the thing about food and bringing the memory of people into your cooking, often it's not actually a recipe, it's just a remembering of what you eat. And I've got a recipe a bit in my new book, which is salt and vinegar potatoes, where you steam some new potatoes and then you sort of press down on them with a fork, and roast them a bit, and they go, so they catch in all the broken down bits. And then when they come out, I put lots of sea salt flakes over, and then I like, and I'm not really a vinegary person, that raw apple cider vinegar, you know, so I put that on top. And it does remind me of her, because she loved vinegar. I never did as a child. And we used to have something at home that was the very famous vinegar sandwich, which would be 2 pieces of plastic white bread doused in vinegar, which she would then eat.
What, like sauce, like kind of malt vinegar?
Yes.
Oh, that's gross.
I know.
I mean, I do quite like vinegar, and I love a kind of a Walker's salt vinegar crisp, but that seems a bit much even for
But anyway,
me.
so I suppose, but in a way, cooking as often as I feel it's about temperament, and if you cook in much the same way, that thing of sort of opening a fridge and just seeing what's there. So I do think of them a lot when I cook. But all my family are quite food focused, if you put it politely. Now, when I had my first flat, I still remember what I bought. I bought this coffee pot. I had a big one too, and it's called, oh dear, it's a bit wobbly, La Signora, because of its shape. Oh. Now, I'm not really much of a coffee drinker. No, I wasn't even then, but I thought it was, you know, obviously sophisticated. And
you bought the coffee pot before anything else?
I bought the table. For my first flat, I actually just took a table from someone. I didn't buy a table, but I did get this. I had this in it. I had a toasted sandwich maker as well, actually.
Yes, yeah.
But
was it a Breville?
It was one that yes, I don't know. It might have looked like a cow, or I don't know. But this is, yes. So I rather love this, and I always have that. So now I have it. I've got 3, and I have them, as it were, like the modern equivalent of flying ducks in my kitchen shelf.
Big coffee pot, little
yes.
coffee pot, little coffee pot.
And this I made. I didn't actually make it. Oh, I should have brought you some of my pottery that I made, but I didn't. I'll show you in the book. But anyway, I designed this one, made it. It's not available anymore, but it's a mezzaluna, or herb chopper. So mezzaluna, because mezzaluna means half moon, and so for chopping everything. And I think you can get other ones. I did this because, you know, it can go in the dishwasher because it hasn't got wooden handle, and mostly they have wooden handles. But they're so useful, and everyone always thinks they look really sort of fancy, and you have to be a good cook. And
they look kind of lethal,
No, but it's the opposite, because I am very, very clumsy. I mean, look, burn, cuts everywhere. So when you're chopping with this, you cannot cut yourself because both hands are engaged. So
that's a good point,
they, for me, because I cut myself a lot, especially, you know, filming, because if I have a knife and I'm talking like this, talking to camera, I'm forever. I mean, it's the amount of time I grated myself filming this series. But this is, so you can chop anything, herbs, dark chocolate, nuts. So I like that.
When did you start using Metzloon instead of a knife?
Oh God, a long time ago. I'm trying to think. It would have been, I don't know, 20 years ago. Now what else? This. Yeah. Okay, I always wanted something copper. And John, you know, my first husband, late husband, he gave me this one Christmas because obviously it was all, you know, it was all he could afford. It was this very, very small butter melting one, which was lovely. And actually I do use it a lot. Because I do melt butter. I actually do melt butter. And also if I'm making something like banana bread, sometimes I'll put like golden sultanas in and then cover with rum or bourbon or something like that, bring it to the boil and then leave it there and they soak in. So if I need that to happen.
It looks very well loved.
It is very well loved. I don't like them when they're too shiny and looking new. I'm not saying that defensively. But this is how I like. This actually is looking cleaner than it normally does. Normally, it's dark brown. But
no, it's got character.
But it is. But it's funny because I thought, oh, it's really sweet, but I'll never use it, and I use it such a lot. So it's very
it looks
nice.
like it would be too small to be useful, but actually.
Yeah. Actually, do you know, the first present John ever got me, I don't know where it quite is, was an onion timer from John Lewis, and it's, you know, like a timer that you know, is put on, and we always used to use it when I started doing TV. And then when the camera needs to take a focus in the bottom of a plate, we used to put the onion in and it became known as Focus Onion. Oh, wow. And in fact, Focus Onion has had to be replaced, but we still do have an onion timer on set, which sometimes you can see. I mean, I don't use it just because we need
look out for
Focus Onion. Yes, you can see whether you can see Focus Onion when we do it.
Had you asked for the onion timer or did he
just he doesn't give it to me. I don't know, we were in John Lewis for some reason. And I don't know why, you know, very exciting early date.
That was when you knew he was a keeper.
I don't think it was actually then.
You thought, oh, here's a weirdo who's just brought me an onion timer.
I don't know why. I don't know what we were doing in John Lewis, but I think he had moved into a flat and needed something, and then was getting stuff, and then he gave me the onion timer, which I liked. And this is my pig of alliums. I brought it with my things in, so that's nearly always on set, and it's always in front of me when not quite in front of me, it's in front of the stove. And so I got this ages and ages ago. People
How old is the pig?
The pig is about 15 years old, and I got the pig in Dean and DeLuca in New York. I was there with a girlfriend, and we both got a pig. Her pig is in better nick than mine.
Maybe he hasn't had the love.
I don't know. I just think maybe
I'm assuming it's a boy pig. I don't know why.
I don't know. I think it's a gender fluid pig.
So those are your things.
Those are my things. I mean, I could have gone on, obviously. I mean, if you knew the amount of clutter, I hate it. Sometimes I feel it's too claustrophobic, but I am a clutterer. And then I have a bit of a clean out, and then I clutter again.
It's just a shopping opportunity, isn't it? If you've cleaned out, you've made room.
Well, no, I'd made room on my surface, I mean, because sometimes I'm sitting cooking and I seem to have an army of condiments coming towards me.
If you had to pick one of your gadgets and utensils, which would it be? Could you?
I couldn't. I mean, I take these, you know, because in the end, you know, you can cook with anything, and this is just reminders of, you know, people and their sort of. But even without them, you know, in a way, you know, memories. We have our memories, and things are just things, so they mean a lot to me. But I try not to become too obsessed with things because I lose things easily, so I don't want it to. So as long as I have the memory, and I suppose then that's what I'm doing in my books. I'm trying to capture memories, both the ones I have from my past and the ones I'm making within my home and with my family now. And you know, something that I find very moving, which is that just very soon after the book came out, I mean, really like that day, the next day, people got it and they started cooking from it, and they would they post pictures, and you know, if they loop me in or hashtag the book, you know, that I can see them, and there's something so lovely. And I really do feel, you know, it sounds like a cliche, but I often say, you know, when I talk about the book, from my table to yours, but actually when people say this is food from your table at my table, it's very moving, and it's lovely to see my home food in other people's homes. And when I do book signings or meet readers wherever, I love it when they tell me how a particular recipe has become part of their family's memories, or something they do that becomes part of their life and means something. And I think that's the thing in the end. It is about that. It isn't about I can do this and this looks great. It's actually about something becoming a part of the way we all live, and that's amazing.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much for showing us your objects.
My clutter.
Making us.
Yes, well.
It's mine. I'm not sharing.